Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the sun, the very source of life, no longer shines the way it used to. Midday feels like dusk. Shadows vanish. The warmth you depend on to grow food is gone. Now imagine that this isn't just a single cloudy day, but a nightmare that continues for months, even years. This was real. It happened in the year 535 AD, when the world was thrown into darkness by one of the most catastrophic volcanic eruptions in history. It begins far away, in a land of thick jungle and mountains that touch the sky. The people who live there have always known the mountain is alive. They whisper about the smoke that sometimes drifts from its summit, about the low rumbles that shake the earth beneath their huts. But no one can imagine the fury that lies waiting beneath their feet. For years, perhaps, centuries, magma has been building in underground chambers, trapped, compressed, desperate for release. And then, sometime in 535, the pressure reaches its breaking point. The ground shudders. Trees sway as if pushed by an invisible hand. Animals scatter in panic. And then comes the roar so loud, so deep, that it seems to tear the sky itself apart. The mountain explodes. A column of ash and fire shoots upward with terrifying force, higher than any storm cloud humans have ever seen. The eruption is so violent that stones the size of houses are hurled miles into the air. Rivers of molten rock cascade down the mountain slopes, consuming everything in their path: villages, forests, rivers. The air becomes poison, thick with sulfur and ash. Birds fall dead from the sky. Fish float lifeless in boiling streams. But the true disaster is only beginning. The eruption hurls millions of tons of ash and gas into the stratosphere, high above the earth where winds carry them around the globe. Invisible particles of sulfuric acid form a veil, wrapping the planet in a shroud that blocks the sun. The eruption may have lasted days, maybe even weeks, but its shadow will linger for years. The people closest to the eruption never have a chance. Entire communities vanish. Under blankets of ash, their homes buried, their fields erased. But thousands of miles away, across seas and continents, others will feel the mountain's anger in ways just as deadly. At first, no one understands what is happening. In the months that follow, strange reports begin to circulate. Sailors on distant seas notice that the sky seems dim even at noon. Farmers in far-off lands watch their crops sprout, only to wither before they mature. In Rome, merchants look up and wonder why the sun has turned pale, its bright face reduced to a dull copper disk. By the end of the year, whispers have begun. The sun is sick. In the far corners of the world, ordinary people begin to notice the changes in the smallest details of life. In a village in Britannia, a child wakes before dawn to the sound of confused roosters. They crow as if morning has come, but when he looks outside, the world is still wrapped in shadow. His father takes him outside, squinting into the horizon. A faint glow spreads across the sky, but the sun that rises is not golden. It is dim, weak, a shadow of its former self. Why is it like this? The boy whispers. His father shakes his head. He has no answer. By midday, the truth becomes undeniable. The world has entered twilight, even at noon. The first harvest under this strange sun is disastrous. Crops fail across continents. Barley grows thin. Wheat heads droop, half empty. In orchards, fruit is small, sour, and scarce. Farmers scratch their heads, muttering prayers to gods old and new. Some claim the land has been cursed. Others insist the end of the world has come. But this is not the end. It is only the beginning of a nightmare that will stretch across years. The eruption of 535 AD has set in motion what historians will later call the volcanic winter, a time when sunlight itself seemed stolen from the world, and millions would suffer because of it. For the families who must live through it, there is no name, only hunger, only fear, only the question that gnaws at them day and night. How do we survive when the sun itself has betrayed us? The year is now 536 AD. For 18 months, the world has been trapped in a twilight that never lifts. Across Europe, Asia, Africa, the sun glows faintly, giving no warmth, casting no shadows. Crops wither, cattle die, families starve, and everywhere, people whisper the same terrifying question: what if the sun never returns? In Constantinople, Emperor Justinian demands answers. His city, once the jewel of the empire, grows restless. Bread is scarce, prices climb. People riot in the streets, smashing carts, demanding food. Bakers are forced to close their shops, their shelves empty. Justinian's advisors gather in the palace, but none can agree on what is happening. Some claim it is God's punishment for human sin. Others whisper of dragons swallowing the sun. A few scholars speak of vapors in the sky, but even they cannot explain why entire seasons seem to have vanished. The emperor orders prayers, he orders sacrifices, but prayers cannot make the wheat grow. Farther north, in the small villages of Britannia, hunger takes a more immediate shape. A father counts the sacks of grain stored beneath his floor. 2 months' supply, maybe 3 They stretch it thin. His children sit near the hearth, their faces gaunt, their bellies swollen with malnutrition. His wife stirs a pot of thin gruel, made not from grain, but from acorns she spent hours leaching in the stream to wash away their bitterness. He does not say it aloud, but he knows winter will bring death. In the mead hall, villagers gather to decide what must be done. The headman stands before them, his face grave. Our fields are barren, he says. If we wait, we die. We must find other ways. A woman speaks up. Her name is Ephra, the oldest in the village. Her voice shakes with age, but carries authority. My grandmother taught me which plants to eat when the fields failed. Nettles, dandelions, the bark of pine. They kept us alive before, and they may keep us alive again. The people listen. Normally, they would laugh at such talk, dismiss it as the muttering of an old woman. But now, in the dim light of a sun that no longer shines, no one laughs. They lean closer. They take notes on scraps of birch bark. They prepare to gather food, not from their fields, but from the wild. And yet, even as people adapt, the suffering grows. In Gaul, farmers grind tree bark into flour, baking loaves so bitter even animals turn away from them. In Ireland, people dig for roots in frozen soil, their hands bleeding from cold. In China, scribes record frost in midsummer and snow in places where it has never snowed before. Across the world, rivers freeze, animals vanish, and the hunger deepens, and with hunger comes sickness. Bodies weakened by starvation cannot resist disease. A cough spreads through villages. Fevers burn. Children fade in their mothers' arms. Graves multiply. Families huddle together at night, listening to the sound of wolves howling at the edge of their villages. Wolves, growing bold, hungry, desperate, just like the people. It seems as if nature itself has turned against humanity, but still, people cling to hope. In that same village in Britannia, a child sits with his family beside the hearth. He stares into the flames, watching them flicker weakly in the strange, heavy air. "Will the sun ever come back?" he asks. His father pauses, then answers firmly, "Yes, the sun will return." But the look in his eyes tells another story. He does not know. None of them know. The eruption has plunged the world into its darkest years, and for millions, the question of survival is no longer about next year, or even next season. It is about tomorrow. Will there be food? Will there be warmth? Will they live to see the sun shine again? For now, the answer is hidden, buried in clouds of ash that circled the globe. A reminder of the mountain that erupted far away, yet reached across the world to touch every human life. Asterisk. Imagine sitting at your table, staring into an empty bowl, while your children whisper in the dark, "Mother, I'm still hungry." You have no answer. Outside, the sun glows faintly in a grey sky, like a dying coal. And the truth becomes clear. The world itself has stopped feeding you. This is not a single family's fear, it is a terror shared across continents, from Britannia to Rome, from Gaul to China. The family in Britannia wakes to another dim morning. It is early summer of 536, though it feels like autumn. The father lifts the trapdoor to check the grain stored beneath the floor. He counts each handful as though weighing the lives of his children. His wife, already awake, stirs a pot of nettle soup, the bitter smell filling the small hut. Their 3 children sit close to the fire, shivering despite the season. "We must stretch it," the mother whispers, "another week at least." Her husband nods. He doesn't tell her what she already knows, that the grain is nearly gone. At the center of the village, the headman calls a meeting. Families gather in the mead hall, their faces drawn and pale. The priest stands tall, holding up a wooden cross. "This is a trial," he declares, "a test of our faith. God has dimmed the sun to remind us of his power. If we endure, he will reward us, but not everyone agrees." At the edge of the hall, old Ephra shakes her head. Her voice is raspy, but steady. "The gods of old speak through the earth," she says. "This is no test. This is fire from beneath." Carried across the sky, the hall grows tense. Christians cluster near the priest, pagans near the old woman. Between them sits the silent majority, too hungry to care which God speaks, only caring for food. The headman raises his hands. "Faith or no faith, we must act. We will ration the grain. We will gather wild plants, and we will hunt deeper into the forest than before." The decision is made. Survival will not come from prayers alone. It will come from work. That evening, the father sharpens his spear. His eldest son, barely 12, watches closely. "Will we find deer?" The boy asks. The father hesitates. "We'll try." The next day, a hunting party sets out. They move through the dark forest, torches sputtering in the thick air. Hours pass. They find no deer, no boar, only silence. Even the birds seem gone. Then, deep in the woods, they find tracks. Not of prey, but of wolves. Large, fresh, circling the same paths the hunters follow. The men exchange uneasy looks. Wolves are hungry too. By dusk, they return empty-handed. The father carries only a single rabbit in his bag, hardly enough to feed even his own family, let alone the village. Children rush to meet them, their eyes wide with hope. When they see the meager catch, their faces fall. That night, the father sits by the fire, staring into the flames. His youngest daughter climbs onto his lap. Will the sun come back tomorrow? She asks softly. He pulls her close. Yes, he says, but inside he is not sure. Far away in Constantinople, the emperor's court sends out messengers with grim news. Riots are breaking out daily. In China, the chronicles note frost on the ground in midsummer. In the Frankish lands, people grind bark into flour, their bread hard as stone. And in Britannia, a small family lies awake in their hut, listening to wolves howling closer than they ever have before. The world grows darker, colder, hungrier, and no one knows when it will end. Part 4. Hook. By now, the year of darkness has stolen more than sunlight. It has stolen trust. Trust in the earth, trust in neighbors, trust in tomorrow. Hunger changes people. It turns good men into thieves, mothers into scavengers, villages into battlegrounds over scraps. And for one small community in Britannia, the darkness is about to reach inside their homes. The morning begins with panic. Someone has broken into the grain store. The headman calls the villagers together, his face pale with fury. Someone among us, he says, has stolen from all of us. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Eyes dart suspiciously. Neighbors who once shared meals now glare at each other. The search begins. The headman and his trusted men go house to house, checking every corner, every sack, every hidden floorboard. When they reach the family's hut, the father stands tall. Search, he says, though his jaw is tight. They find nothing. But 3 homes later, they discover the truth. Grain is hidden in the thatch of Wulfric's roof. Wulfric, whose wife died last winter, whose children's bellies are swollen from hunger. When confronted, he does not deny it. My children are starving, he says, simply. What would you do? Silence hangs heavy. No one has an answer. The debate rages in the mead hall. Some demand Wulfric's banishment. Others plead for mercy. Finally, the headman decides. Wulfric and his eldest son will return the stolen grain and take on the most dangerous hunts. They will walk the forests where wolves prowl. If they bring back meat, the village may forgive. If they fail, hunger will decide their fate. The decision leaves the village uneasy. Trust has been broken. Families begin guarding their own food at night. Fear no longer comes only from the sky, but from the neighbors they once trusted. Meanwhile, the family tries to hold on. The mother teaches her children which plants are safe to eat: dandelion roots, cattail shoots, nettles. She warns them against deadly mushrooms, her voice trembling with memory. My cousin's boy died this way, she says, a hunger death worse than starvation. The children listen carefully. They must. Their survival now depends on knowledge once dismissed as old women's tales. One evening, the eldest son returns from gathering with a handful of wild garlic. His mother smiles weakly. This will flavor the soup, she says, but her hands shake as she slices it. Even flavor feels like a luxury. Far beyond their village, other lands face the same despair. In Ireland, whole settlements vanish, their people wandering in search of food. In China, officials report yellow dust falling from the sky. In Rome, the people riot again. Soldiers whip them back into line, but they cannot whip grain into the fields. The darkness is global, but for this small family, it feels crushingly personal. Every day is a test. Every night is filled with the cries of hungry children and the howls of wolves outside. And in the quiet between, one question never leaves them. How long can this go on? Picture this. It's supposed to be summer, yet you can see your own breath in the morning air. Frost clings to the edges of your roof. The sun, weak and ghostly, hangs in the sky like a dying ember. You remember what warmth used to feel like, but now it's only memory. This is not a single day of strange weather, it's the 5th season. Of hunger, the year without a summer, the family's hut feels colder than ever. The father rises early, pulling on his patched wool tunic. He lifts the trap door to check their supplies again. The sack of acorn flour is lighter than yesterday. The beans are nearly gone. The mother moves silently, stretching what's left into a thin porridge flavored with bitter nettle leaves. The children eat slowly, savoring each spoonful, though it does little to ease the ache in their stomachs. Eat, even if it's little, their mother urges. We must keep our strength. The youngest son stares at the bottom of his bowl. Will there be more tomorrow? He whispers. The father does not answer. By midday, the headman gathers the village. His voice is stern but edged with fear. We've received word from the east. The largest settlement by the Roman road is suffering, too. They say monasteries are opening their doors to share knowledge, even some food. The bishop himself has called for a gathering. Murmurs spread. For many, monasteries are distant places of mystery stone walls, chanting monks, libraries filled with strange books. But in desperate times, even the most unlikely places become sources of hope. We will send 2 men, the headman announces, Father Cuthbert and Dunstan. They will carry our need before the bishop. But not all agree. Some villagers whisper that the journey is too dangerous. Wolves prowl the roads. Bandits, driven by hunger, attack travelers for scraps. But the decision stands. That night, the family huddles around the fire. The mother takes stock of what remains. Dried mushrooms, a handful of shriveled berries, a small clay pot of precious salt. She lays them out on the wooden table, her face drawn with worry. 2 weeks, at most. She says softly to her husband. He looks at the children, sleeping fitfully, their cheeks hollow. We must make it last longer, he replies. But he knows. The truth there is no longer without a miracle the next day. He takes his eldest with him to check the snares deeper in the forest. They find 1 rabbit, thin and ragged. As they turn back, the boy notices tracks in the snow. Large, heavy. Father, he whispers. Wolves. The man nods grimly. The tracks are fresh. The pack is close. They hurry home, shadows pressing in from the trees. Asterisk. Meanwhile, across the world, the same story plays out. In China, records describe yellow fog that blocks the sun, crops rotting in the fields, frost in midsummer. In Constantinople, the emperor's men order more bread from Egypt, but even the Nile fails to produce. And in the villages of Britannia, one family prays that the wolves outside their door will not test the walls tonight, when the howling begins. Low and mournful, the children cling to their mother. The father grips his spear. They wait in silence. Every creak of the hut sounding like doom. The night passes without attack, but fear has entered their hearts in a new way. Wolves do not usually come this close. Now, hunger drives everything closer. Death, at the door, waiting. And still the sun gives no comfort. Hunger can break a body, but it can also break a community. When food disappears, suspicion takes its place. Neighbors become rivals. Friends become thieves. And sometimes the hardest battles are not against the wolves outside the walls, but against the desperation inside them. The family wakes to shouting in the village square. A crowd has gathered. At its center, The headman holds up a bloodied cloth. Another theft, he declares. Grain stolen again. This time, the thief is caught. A boyno, older than the eldest son, stands trembling, his face pale. In his hands, a loaf of bread, still warm from someone else's hearth. His mother falls to her knees, begging. He only wanted to feed his sisters. She cries. The villagers argue fiercely. Some demand punishment, others demand mercy. The headman raises his hand. We cannot survive if we turn against each other, but neither can we survive if theft tears us apart. The boy is spared banishment, but ordered to labor day and night for the village. Still, the wound of distrust spreads. Families begin hiding food, watching their neighbors with suspicion. That evening, the father speaks to his children. You must never take from others, he warns. We survive by sharing, not stealing. His eldest nods, but glances toward. The boy, now carrying firewood twice his size, his face gray with exhaustion. The lesson is clear, yet bitter. Mercy saves lives, but hunger makes every choice cruel. Days later, Father Cuthbert and Dunstan set out for the bishop's council. The village gathers to see them off. They carry no weapons but a small pouch of dried meat, gifts for the monks. The family watches them vanish down the road, their silhouettes swallowed by the haze. Will they bring back food? The eldest daughter asks. Her mother shakes her head. Knowledge, maybe, not food. Knowledge is precious, but it cannot fill an empty belly. A week passes. Snow begins to fall again, heavy and unseasonal. The roofs sag under its weight. The father joins the hunters in one last desperate attempt. They travel deep into the forest, following faint deer tracks. At last, in a sheltered valley, they find a small herd. With spears and bows, they surround the animals. The clash is brutal shouts, the crack of branches, the wild eyes of deer leaping. In the chaos, 3 deer fall. It is a victory, but costly. One hunter is mauled by wolves that strike from the shadows, drawn by the smell of blood. The survivors drag the carcasses home, staggering under the weight. When the village sees the meat, cheers break out. For the first time in months, the air fills with the smell of roasting venison. That night, the family eats slowly, savoring each bite. The children smile, their cheeks greasy with fat. Music rises fiddles, a bone whistle, voices raised in song. For a moment, the darkness seems to retreat, and then, at the height of the celebration, a traveler arrives. Thin, weary, but alive. He brings news. In the south, the sun is returning. The words hang in the air like a spark. Could it be true? Could the darkness be ending? No one knows for sure. But in that moment, hope flickers alive, as fragile and precious as the fire in their hearths. Imagine waiting for men who might never return. They've gone beyond the safety of your fields, carrying your village's hope into the unknown. Days stretch into weeks, and each dawn you wonder, will today bring news or silence? In the meantime, the darkness deepens, and hunger grows bold enough to knock at every door. The village feels tense. Father Cuthbert and Dunstan have been gone nearly 2 weeks. Every day, children climb the ridge overlooking the Roman road, scanning the grey horizon for a sign of travelers. Each evening, they return disappointed. The family tries to endure. Their small sack of beans dwindles. Their mother pounds acorn flour into a bitter paste. The father spends long hours in the forest, setting snares, but rabbits are scarce. Even the birds have vanished. as though the sky itself drove them away. At night, wolves cry closer. The sound rattles through the thin timber walls. The children huddle together, listening to the father's steady breathing beside the fire. His spear rests within arm's reach, always ready. On the 15th day, at last, the call goes up. Travelers, travelers on the road. The village gathers as two weary figures stagger into view. Father Cuthbert's face is gaunt, his robes tattered. Dunstan leans on a stick, his limp worse than when he left. They are thinner, but alive. The crowd surrounds them, desperate for news. The priest raises his hands. The darkness stretches across Christendom, he announces. From the shores of Gaul to the deserts beyond Constantinople, the bishop himself has seen frost on vineyards in midsummer. Gasps ripple through the villages. The priest continues. The cause, they say, is a mountain in the far south that spewed fire and smoke into the heavens. Ash, carried by the winds, has blotted out the sun. A mountain, someone shouts. Then we are cursed by distant lands. The priest shakes his head. Not cursed, stricken, and not only us. This affliction touches the whole earth. The villagers murmur. Fear deepens. If even the bishop has no answer, what hope remains? But Father Cuthbert raises a finger. There is knowledge. The monasteries keep records from the days of Rome. They say we must adapt. New crops, new ways to preserve food. The monks gave us peas that grow even in weak light. He holds up a small cloth pouch. The sight of it is like treasure. The seeds are counted and shared among families. The mother receives a few precious peas, which she cradles in her hand like jewels. That evening, by the hearth, she plants them, carefully in the garden's warmest corner. She whispers charms half pagan, half Christian, blending old words and new prayers. The children watch silently, as though witnessing a ritual that could decide their fates. Will they grow? The eldest asks. His mother's eyes are tired, but determined. They must. Far beyond Britannia, other families do the same. In Gaul, peas and beans are planted in monastery courtyards. In China, farmers turn to hardy millet, hoping it will withstand the chill. In the north, some abandon their homes entirely, walking south in ragged lines, praying for brighter skies. The earth has turned strange, hostile, but humans are stubborn. They plant, they hope, they endure, and in one small Britannia village, green shoots push through the ash-darkened soil, a miracle no larger than a child's finger, but enough to keep hope alive. Asterisk, you've seen winters before. You've seen fields covered in frost, nights that bite through wool, mornings where fire feels like salvation. But nothing prepares you for this. A winter piled on top of a winter, in a world where summer never came. This is no season, it is siege. The peas sprout. Pale stems climb against the side of the hut, their leaves thin but alive. The family tends them with devotion, watering them with drops saved from the rain barrel. Each day, the children check for pods, whispering encouragement, like prayers. But autumn comes, colder than memory. By the time the first pods appear, frost already touches the ground. The harvest is pitiful enough for one meager meal and a handful saved for seed. It is not enough. The headman gathers the village. His voice is grave. Winter is upon us. Early we must prepare. Firewood, food, shelter, all must be stretched. The families nod. They know what winter means in the best of times. Now, with the sun still weak and the land barren, the word feels like a death sentence. By December, snow covers the ground knee-deep, The family's hut grows dim and damp. They sleep huddled together on straw pallets near the hearth, sharing warmth. Their breath fogs the air. Water freezes in buckets overnight. Asterisk. Their mother wraps the children's feet with scraps of fur. Their father patches shoes with sinew from old snares. Every resource is stretched to breaking. The food stores dwindle. Dried mushrooms, bitter acorn flour, a strip of venison saved. From the autumn hunt, their mother stirs it into broth, serving bowls half empty to stretch it further. Eat slowly, she whispers. Make it last. The wolves return. One night howls rise just beyond the edge of the village. Then the sound of claws scratching wood. A goat pen is breached. By morning, blood stains the snow. The headman orders watchfires at night. Spears stand ready, yet everyone knows wolves are desperate to hunger has made them bold. One evening, the father joins the hunters in a larger group. They march into the woods, spears glinting in torchlight. They find deer tracks, but before they can follow, eyes shine in the darkness. A pack circling. The hunters shout, beat their shields, drive the wolves back. But not before one man falls, torn by teeth. They drag him home, his leg shredded. The healer tends him, muttering prayers. The village whispers, the wolves will not stop. They know there is food here. By January, hunger claims its first clear victim. Old Godwin, the charcoal maker, dies quietly in his sleep. Everyone knows he had been giving his portions to his grandchildren. His heart simply stopped. The burial is grim. The ground is too frozen to dig, so stones are piled over his body until spring. The children ask why he cannot be laid in the earth. Their mother only says, the earth is too hard now. The message is clear. Even the ground itself resists them. Beyond the village, news grows darker. The trader who comes from the coast tells of entire settlements abandoned, of mothers leaving infants at monastery gates, too weak to care for them, of riots in the Frankish towns, of corpses unburied along the roads, frozen where they fell. South, the trader advises quietly. If you can, go south. There, the sun begins to return. But the family cannot leave. They have no cart, no horses, no stores to carry. Their world is the hut, the forest, the village, so they stay and endure. Inside their hut, one candle burns. Lo, the family gathers close. The children's eyes are wide in the flickering light. Their mother begins to tell a story of how the sun was once stolen by a giant, hidden in a cave, until a hero tricked it free. And that is why, she concludes softly, the sun always returns. Her words hang in the air like fragile glass. The children drift into uneasy sleep. The father stares into the fire, his jaw tight. He does not believe in giants, but he clings to the same hope, that the sun, however faint, must someday shine again. Asterisk hunger can twist the mind. It can turn neighbors into enemies, villages into cages, and trust into a fragile thread ready to snap. When the sun fails, when fields lie empty, survival itself becomes a crime. The morning begins with shouting. The father rises quickly, spear in hand, while the children peer through the cracks in the hut's shutters. A crowd gathers in the village square. The headman's voice cuts through the cold air. Someone has broken into the grain stores. The villagers shift uneasily. The communal pit, where every family contributed what little they could, has been the lifeline through the dark months. To steal from it is to steal from all. We will search every house, the headman declares grimly. No one is above suspicion. The family exchanges uneasy glances. They have so little, would anyone believe they'd risk everything to steal? The searches begin. Homes are turned upside down, bundles unwrapped, walls and floors probed for hiding places. The father stands tall when they enter his hut. "Look, if you must," he says, voice flat. The men rummage through their stores, find nothing but the pitiful scraps left. The search moves on. 3 houses later, the truth is revealed. Grain hidden in Wulfric's thatched roof. Wulfric, the gaunt man whose youngest child had died last spring. Wulfric, who still has 3 little mouths to feed, all with the swollen bellies of starvation. The crowd erupts. Some demand his banishment. Others cry mercy. Wulfric himself does not deny it. His voice breaks as he pleads. "My children are starving. What would you have me do?" The headman's face is like stone. "To steal from the village is to endanger every child, not just yours." The debate rages into evening. Punishment, mercy, survival, every argument cuts deeper. Finally, the headman decides Wulfric will return what remains. To make amends, he and his eldest will take the most dangerous hunts in the deep forest. If they bring back meat, the village lives. If not, the sentence hangs in the air. The family watches silently as Wulfric lowers his head. His children cling to him, too young to understand the judgment, too hungry to care. That night, the mother sits by the fire, eyes distant. "It could have been any of us," she murmurs. Desperation makes thieves of good men. The eldest child lies awake long after the others sleep. He pictures Wulfric in the forest, surrounded by wolves. He wonders if their family had no food. Would his father have done the same? The question gnaws at him, colder than the winter air. The next morning brings no comfort. Snow falls heavy again, blanketing the village in white silence. The family trudges to the communal hall, where what remains of last night's stew is ladled. Out, the taste of venison, stretched thin with nettles and mushrooms, lingers bitter on the tongue as they eat. The headman announces, "Father Cuthbert will return to the monastery. The monks have more to teach us ways to preserve food, medicines for the coughs spreading through the children. We will not survive without their knowledge." The father nods grimly. Knowledge feeds fewer mouths than bread, but he knows the truth: bread is gone. Knowledge may be the only currency left. When Father Cuthbert departs, the family watches from the gate. The children cling to their mother's skirts. Will he bring food? The youngest asks. Their father lays a hand on the boy's head. He will bring something, perhaps enough, but his eyes betray doubt. Meanwhile, beyond Britannia, the same story spreads. In Ireland, annals describe a failure of bread. In Italy, frostbites, vineyards, olives wither on the branch. In China, officials note summer snow and famine so severe that parents abandon children on the roads. The whole world is hungry, and hunger makes everyone a thief, sooner or later. Sometimes survival means learning from the past. Sometimes it means inventing new ways. And sometimes it means sitting in a cold monastery, staring at books older than memory, trying to remember how humanity once endured the unendurable. Father Cuthbert returns 3 weeks later. He looks thinner, his eyes hollow, but he carries with him more than seeds this time. He brings parchment and ink, notes copied from ancient Roman texts. He gathers the village in the hall, unrolls the scrolls, and begins to teach. The monks say we must waste nothing. Every root, every bark, Every fungus each may save a life if used wisely. He speaks of smoking meat with less wood, of drying fish with herbs. He teaches how to brew pine needle tea for strength, how to recognize mushrooms that grow even in deep winter, how to carve ice shelters if huts collapse from snow. The villagers listen intently. Old women nod knowingly, recalling fragments of forgotten lore. Children scribble shapes in the dirt, copying leaves and roots as the priest describes them. Knowledge becomes as precious as grain. That evening, the family gathers by their hearth. Their mother sorts through the day's foraging cattail roots, bitter sorrel, a handful of winter mushrooms. She sets aside one root with a reddish tinge. Not this one, she warns. It will sicken you. The children nod solemnly. Mistakes now mean death. Their father returns from the hunt with nothing but frozen hands. The deer move further each week, he mutters. Even the wolves look thinner. They share the thin stew silently. Every sip is a reminder of how much they depend on knowledge that once seemed useless, what old women knew, what monks preserved, what their ancestors endured. But knowledge does not end hunger by February. The first real starvation deaths strike. Their village, a child, no older than 5, a woman too weak to rise from her pallet. The burials grow harder as the ground freezes deeper. Stones piled high, prayers spoken quickly, tears frozen on faces. The family watches each funeral with growing dread. The mother whispers charms while the priest prays. The father sharpens his spear by the fire, though there is nothing left to hunt. Then one day a figure appears on the road, a traveler from the south, gaunt but alive. He carries seeds in a small leather pouch. Beans, he says simply, from the coast monasteries. They grow in dim light. They climb high, even against walls. The villagers cluster around him, staring at the tiny treasures in his palm. Their mother receives 7 beans. She holds them like holy relics. That afternoon, she takes the children to the warmest corner of their garden. Kneeling in the ash-darkened soil, one hand deep, she instructs. Not too shallow, not too deep, and pray. The beans vanish into the ground. Hope vanishes with them, buried under earth. All that remains is waiting. Beyond the village, news grows stranger. Traders whisper of cities collapsing. In Gaul, riots break out as starving crowds storm granaries. In China, reports speak of cannibalism. In Constantinople, the emperor orders prayers day and night. Incense rising against a dim sun that refuses to brighten. The whole world trembles on the edge of collapse. But in Britannia, one family watches a patch of dirt outside their hut, waiting for 7 beans to rise. When the first shoots appear, pale and fragile, the children shout with joy. Their mother smiles for the first time in weeks. The father kneels beside the plants, touching the tiny leaves with calloused fingers. Grow, he whispers. Please, grow. The beans are small, but they are alive. And in this darkened world, even the smallest green thing feels like a promise that the sun has not abandoned them entirely. Asterisk, what if the sun never returned? What if this dim twilight was the new forever? By late winter, that question gnaws at every heart. Hope becomes as rare as food, and each day feels like a coin toss between life and death. The beans grow, but so slowly. Their pale stems climb the wall, leaves trembling in the weak light. A handful of pods appear, small and stunted. The mother harvests them with careful fingers, counting each seed as though it were gold. Some are eaten immediately, boiled into thin broth. Others are dried, stored away for planting if there is another season to plant at all. But the harvest is pitiful. It cannot feed the family, let alone the village. The father shakes his head, his jaw tight. Enough for next year, maybe, not for this one. And so the hunger deepens by March. Snow lies thick in the fields. The well water freezes each night. The children's cheeks grow hollow. Their bellies swell with the sickness of starvation. The wolves return, bolder than ever. One night, their howls rise like a chorus around the village. A pack circles the livestock pens. Men rush with torches and spears, driving them back, but not before 2 goats are dragged into the darkness. The father joins the night watch. He stands by the fire, spear in hand, eyes scanning the tree line. He knows the wolves are not the only danger. Desperate men can be worse. Indeed, news spreads of villagers turning against themselves. A trader, gaunt as a ghost, arrives from the east. He tells of settlements where families abandoned the elderly to save food, of towns where neighbors killed each other for sacks of grain. His voice trembles as he admits, in some places they eat the dead now, or worse the living. The villagers stare in horror. The children are sent inside, but they have already heard enough. The eldest cannot sleep that night, his mind haunted by the thought of hunger so deep that even humanity is devoured. The family endures as best they can. Each morning begins with the same question: what can we eat today? Their mother teaches them to gather pine bark, peeling thin strips to grind into flour. Their father sets snares farther and farther from home, risking the wolves. One afternoon, he returns with a single rabbit, thin, barely enough for one meal, but it feels like a feast. The mother stretches it with nettles, mushrooms, and a handful of dried peas. Each child receives a bowl. They sip slowly, savoring each bite as though it might be their last, but the father eats nothing. He only watches his children, hunger burning in his eyes. By April, the first funerals come not from illness, but from hunger. Children mostly. A boy from the far end of the village. A girl no older than 6. Their graves are marked with stones. The frozen ground too hard to dig. The headman's voice shakes when he speaks. We must endure until spring. If the sun returns, we live. If not, he does not finish. He does not need to. One evening, the family sits by their fading fire. The mother tells another story, her voice soft. There was once a time when the moon grew jealous of the sun. She stole his light, hid it beneath the sea. The world froze. But a fisherman's daughter dove into the waves, found the light, and returned it to the sky. That is why, she says, the sun always comes back, no matter how long the night. The children listen wide-eyed. The father stares at the embers, silent. He wants to believe. But faith and hunger make uneasy companions. Outside, the wolves howl again, and the night feels endless. After 18 months, the sun finally breaks through. But survival is not victory. It is a scar, a memory etched into every face, every field, every heart that lived through the darkness. It begins with a sound, dripping, snow melting from the roof, icicles glistening. The children rush outside, breath steaming in the morning chill. They see patches of brown earth where white had covered for months. Spring, the mother whispers, almost afraid to believe it, but the father shakes his head. Not yet. The cold still holds. Still, something has changed. The air feels softer, the snow thinner. In April, green shoots appear along the stream. sorrel, nettles, chickweed. The family gathers them eagerly. They are bitter, but fresh. After a winter of acorns and bark, the taste feels like life itself. Soon, mushrooms sprout from damp logs. The mother dries them carefully, remembering the monastery's teachings. Every new discovery is another step back from the cliff of starvation. Then, one day, the miracle comes. The clouds part, the haze thins, and for the first time in over a year, true sunlight pours down. The village freezes. Men drop tools. Women look skyward, mouths open. Children laugh, spinning in the golden light. Shadows, sharp and real, stretch across the ground. The father grips his wife's hand. His face, hard for months, softens. "It's back," he whispers. "The sun is back." Tears shine in her eyes. We survived long enough to see it. The following weeks bring more breaks in the haze. The sun's warmth strengthens. Fields long barren begin to stir. Seeds sprout, leaves unfurl. The air smells of earth instead of ash. Birds return, singing in the hedges. The family plants there. Saved beans again, this time in richer soil. They plant peas from the monastery, turnips in the garden. For the first time in many seasons, hope feels real. But survival has left its mark. The village is smaller. Graves line the churchyard. Faces, our thinner eyes haunted. Old Godwin, Wulfric's youngest. The children buried in the snow, all gone dot around the communal fire. The headman speaks. "We endured the year without summer. We lived through the ash and the hunger. We will never forget." The priest nods. "Solemnly, the Lord tested us. And though many fell, we endure." Old Aphra, the wise woman, raises her voice. "Remember the plants. Remember the roots. Remember what kept us alive when crops failed. Let us teach the children, so this knowledge is never lost again." The villagers nod. The lessons of survival will be written into memory. But one evening, as the family eats their first truly fresh meal, sorrel soup with wild garlic, the youngest child asks, "Will the sun ever leave again?" The mother hesitates. Then she says softly, "No, not like this. But even if it does, we will endure, because we know how." The father adds, "We survived once. That means we can survive again." The firelight flickers on their faces. They are thinner, older, scarred by hunger, but they are alive. As summer deepens, the sun shines brighter. Fields of beans and peas climb high. Birds nest, children play again. The world, though scarred, has not ended. At night, the stars shine sharp and clear. The father points to them, holding his son close. They were always there, even when we couldn't see them. Like the sun, like hope. The boy leans against him, safe for the first time in months, and above the darkened memories of famine and fear, the constellations wheel on, eternal. Unchanged asterisk, the volcanic eruption of 535 AD dimmed the sun for nearly 2 years. It brought famine, hunger, and death to millions. Yet humanity endured, not because the world was kind, but because people are stubborn, resilient, and willing to fight for life even in the face of endless night. In the end, the sun returned, but those who survived never looked at its light the same way again. Asterisk, asterisk.